It's time to update you, educate you, and bring you the Reserve List Top 10 Selling Magic Cards. From February 3rd to the 10th of 2024, today's video, like others in the last couple of weeks, has a few surprises in store for players as buyouts continue to rock the market of the Reserve List. Let's get the party started. Welcome back to the Reserve List Top 10 video, guys. Anyone who has been here for a while knows that this is the place to come to find out what's going on with Reserve List cards and sales volumes with, of course, the host, MTG Moxman. A reminder, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And of course, if you're shopping for any of these cards, don't forget you can use my affiliate link found in the description of this video. Now, what are we talking about? Well, we're starting in at number 10 with Mox Diamond from Stronghold. This card has had multiple sales week over week, and this is no different. 38 sales this week, or a total sales volume of $25,000 plus. Now, what does that mean for cards like this? That was if they were all near mint. But in this case, we are playing a game of Where is Waldo. Players are just trying to find the real card and buy it at the best possible price, because the upshifting we've seen in the prices right now, gaining $40, $50, $60, $80 in the last couple of weeks, this card is showing a massive percentage increase in overall sales, volumes, and price increase. The product supply versus the demand has not been met yet, and that's causing a spike in prices. And there's a lot of people holding on to this card because they may have spent well over $1,000. They're not selling anytime soon. Now, our next card, number 9, is Debt of Loyalty. This card has been here for the last couple of weeks. It's no surprise. It is a fun card to use. 50 sales this week, or $457. It's only $9.14. It's still under the $10 kind of cap for cards like this, which are fine. We know it's been higher than that, but it's still at a fairly decent price, and it does see some Commander play, as well as other Eternal formats. But when you look at a card like this, I'm starting to think we got a lot of speculators kind of coming back into the market and testing the waters, guys. So be really cautious right now. Don't jump into FOMO with this. Don't dive in thinking something crazy is going to happen. These cards are not GameStop, right? We're not going to see the GameStop come back around again. It's going to come down to what these cards functionally can do inside deck construction that is going to make the value stick longer term. Remember, blue chip Eternal cards are the ones you want to hold on to. Other fun cards, if you can get them cheap enough, why not? Which brings us to our next card. Here is Pendrell Mist from Weatherlight. I love this card, and yes, I own about 20 copies of it. I have bought it at different price points in the last several years. Here it is at $7.57, and of course, this acts like a Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, but of course at 1/100th of the cost. So is it worth it under 10 bucks? Is this a card you should be buying? Well, 54 sales this week only equaled out to $408. So you can see this card doesn't have a lot of value. Playability, depending on the deck you're building with, it can be a lot of fun, and it's under $10. I say have at it. If you want to buy 1 or 2 copies, if you want to buy just 1 copy, go for a near mint. You might as well select the best you possibly can when it's under $10. Yes, you can hit a moderately played copy for like $5, but for a couple of dollar difference, nobody's going to notice except for a collector investor later on in case this card ever spikes up. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our next card. We're going to Revised in this case, and we are checking out the wonderful dual land Savannah. $319.49 is the average price for near mint copies. 56 sales this week, and as you can see, that still leads to a very large sales volume of $17,891.44. But does this mean that this card is starting to really trend upwards in price? Yes, it's had a bit of a spike, but the cards selling are still heavily played and moderately played copies. No investor grade copies are really moving on the market. No one wants to hit the $500 price point. These are players just trying to get in at the market bottom, or at least where they believe the market bottom to be. So keep that in mind for if you're one of those players out there holding on to this card, thinking it's going to spike higher. It's going to sell at whatever price a player is willing to pay for it. This is not a seller's market. This is a buyer's market. It hasn't really changed. You're just seeing more volume as players have noticed that the new prices for Magic cards are not really to their liking, so they're seeking the refuge of the reserve list and the blue chip cards hiding within it. Which brings us to speculation. Let's take a look at our next card here. This is from Visions. This is Lycanthrope. Lycanthrope, whatever you want to call it. It's a plant guy. It's a fungus dude. 57 copies is only $42, guys. It's 42 bucks. Somebody bought 57 copies. This card gives -1/-1 counters to itself. You can read the card yourself. It doesn't do a lot, especially by today's standards. So somebody's having some fun. This is a speculator, hoping to hit the market, hoping to have a little bit of fun, kick it around and see what happens. This is the exact example of where market manipulation can go if a whole bunch of cards all start selling and everyone gets on that FOMO bandwagon. Cards like this, though, are not going to carry on the way they did before. These cards are going to stay low. The market is smarter and looking for the most playable cards, the best bang for their buck, which is why we're going to see cards like this. Taiga, still selling from Revised, hitting the market. It's $377.99. Pardon my word salad there, as they say. When you look at this card and see the total sales volume is $25,325, is it really a surprise? This card has had a lot of play. It's a well sought after card, but again, not near mint, okay? That's the near mint price total, but really we're talking here about cards going for like 210 to 230, moderately to heavily played, a couple of damaged copies in the 170s to 180s. These are just players who want to have it, sleeve it, use it. This is not speculators going after near mint graded copies, but there are speculators starting to come back, and they are buying the moderately played ones if they can find good deals on it, hoping to capitalize later. Let's not pretend something's not happening when we know it is and you can see it in the sales volumes. Keep your eyes peeled, but buy with the best of intentions of cards you're going to play with. Our next card, Undiscovered Paradise. We're going to Vision, 71 sales this week, or a total sales volume of $776.74. This is not a big, massive selling card, but it does do something very unique, and it has a lot of playability. I still consider this land to be a blue chip land, okay? When you look at the mana base of old cards, these things just don't come around anymore. This has value, this has playability. It can be used in a multitude of decks for a multitude of reasons, which is why a card like this always rings true for me. Buy 4 copies, call it a day, wrap it up, and yes, in this case, spend the $10.94 buying the near mint copies. Buy the ones that are the best quality you can find. Near mint doesn't mean what it used to mean, but you can still look for those perfect copies if you're hunting for it, okay? So take a look out. This is one of those cards I say buy it, hold it, and just forget about it so you never have to buy it again. Now let's go down and take a look at our next card. We are popping in here to Brain Geyser Revised Edition. Kind of a surprise to see it here, but here it is again in the number 3 spot with 82 sales. That's only $1,324, but this thing is no longer an $80, $90, $100 card from Revised. It is seeing quite a bit of action right now in the secondary market. We are seeing no upshift in price, which means there is plenty of supply to meet the demand at the current price point, which means anyone buying into this right now, you better be buying it because you need it. Don't be a speculator holding in there because you have a long way to go until we ever hit the old buyout targets that we saw in the revised list back in 2022. The revised cards had their first real big buyouts. Things went kind of crazy. Now people have tested the waters. They know where the market is. You're not even near the bottom. You're going to take tens of thousands of dollars to really hit this card. So it's going to be left alone. Let's go to number 2. This is Lake of the Dead. This made honorable mention last week, but I was surprised after my blue chip stock video that this saw a lot more action. Moderately played and light played copies, as well as some heavily played here and there, made it to 112 actual sales this week, which is $8,970. Pretty respectable, but this card is still well under, it's 1/3 of what it used to be, which means players still have a lot of room for potential upswing. It means speculators are definitely coming back in to buy cards like this. And of course, you can still find kind of beat up copies for the $40 to $60 range. And that's where a lot of the sales are going for players who don't have the big bucks. But there are players buying near mint copies just because it's under $100. And that means they have a lot of upswing potential in the years to come. And I guess players just like the card. I mean, I have a play set, I'm good, and I have a few extra copies for patrons, so it makes sense. Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 1 card. And yes, it's kind of a surprise it's still here, but here we are. Number 1 revised copy artifact. Now, this card, of course, surprised us a few weeks back, but the real surprise is look at the sales volume, 217 sales, 17,926. But if you look back at the last couple of weeks, when this card was down to like 12 to 13 bucks, And although it had 228 sales, you can look back on that video a few weeks ago and see it was only like a $7,000 sale. This thing has doubled in sales volumes. It has doubled its price, and it is stay away. This card is not going to stay at this price. Do not buy it unless you have to have it. This card will settle down. I consider this now almost a FOMO thing. Don't touch it at this price point. It will sink back down. It's just going to take time. It's revised, and there's a massive swimming fish ocean of this card still available in varying conditions. At this point, I'd say it's getting a little bit ridiculous. Stay away. But don't worry, we're not done this video yet. Stick around to the end because we've still got honorable mentions, plus we have our wrap-up. So here in the honorable mentions, we're going to stop in here and take a look at Volcanic Island. This thing did have 20 plus sales, which would have been somewhere around $17,000 to $18,000 in sales volumes. But let's face it, it's not enough volume to make the list, but it definitely makes honorable mention. Heavily played, moderately played copies. Argivian Archaeologist out of the blue, because it's like around the $100 mark depending on where you're buying it. And don't worry about the 163, ignore that. It's around $100 depending on condition, and it is starting to see some actual sales, so keep an eye out. And of course, our last card on the honorable mention comes from Urza's Destiny, and this is Academy Rector for obvious reasons. You can still find this thing for a lot less money than you expect, and it's of course a very desirable card. Welcome back to the end of the video. We are here at the wrap up, and there's some stuff I want to cover here about the market manipulation as well as what we see with actual people buying the card. If you're buying a blue chip stock card, you're buying a mana based card on the reserve list. I don't care which one, because Balduvian Trading Post actually had a lot of sales too. We had Soldevi Excavations with a lot of sales. These cards do sell all the time. But why you're buying it is what matters. If you're a person who wants to own the card and play with it, it makes perfect sense in this market space at these prices to buy it. Are there speculators diving in right now? 100%. Not all these cards are being bought because a player wants to play with them. The volumes get too wacky and no person's buying 23 copies. It just doesn't happen. So when I see those kind of numbers from one particular source, that's when I know we have speculators kind of hedging their bets and buying some copies. We see things like the Lycanthrope, 57 copies. When you see those sales, those are people just having fun. I don't care why they're buying it. It could be a card they love. It could be their dream card to own 500 copies of it. There's lots of reasons why people do crazy things, but that is not an actual card that people are going to be playing with in a lot of decks, which means the value eventually will always sink. A card can be collectible, but that doesn't mean it's valuable. When we've looked in the past and seen how this market space has played out, finding the blue chip cards like the dual lands, like all the mana base. I love the mana base of all reserve list lands. When you look at Volrosh Stronghold, when you go ahead and look at Gaia's Cradle, when you look at the cards that are actually being played, Serra Sanctum, these things go kind of crazy. But with the prices the way they are, these lower end ones, the Volross, the even Tolarian Academy didn't make the list, not even close, but these cards have value and playability which are just unheard of by today's standards of how these lands work. All the lands we see now, even the new Surveil lands from Mirza Karlov Manor, they jumped up in price, but eventually they'll get reprinted. Eventually they go down, but somebody buys 5 copies of Volrosh Stronghold because they want it for 5 different decks, whatever reason, and those 5 are gone from the market space until that person decides to sell them. They're not coming back. Blue chip. This is interesting. This is interesting what we're seeing on the market space. All this MTG finance stuff, all these reserve list cards lighting up the way they are, I think is a direct result of what just happened with Mirza Karlov Manor. I think it's players looking at the play booster box price and saying, I'm not going to spend that when I can actually buy a dual land for the same price. That's where people's headspace is at. Looking for value, but looking for playability. Cards they actually have always wanted and are going to use. And that brings back speculators into the market space, fueling things a bit as they buy up the market as well. Interesting. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Slam some stuff down. Volcanic Island, right? Crazy. And of course, at the end of this, there's still the Ramble Jamble, so stay tuned. We are back to our supporters of the channels, the demigods, the table lords, the people that make things happen here, the patrons. Not only my patrons, my MTG subscriber members. These guys are the ones who help make this content possible each and every day. Thank you again to everyone who watches. Thanks to everyone who supports the channel. We'll see you tomorrow. It's bad. It's not where I want it to be. This is not good. Welcome back to the Ramble Jamble. All those things actually matter. Now, I'm clicking off my phone here. At the end of the video, I'm sorry, like the beep went off. I couldn't do anything about it. I left it. I'm not going to re-edit that. We're here at the end. Now, coffee-wise, down to 20%. Not a good sign. Being talked into going out for dinner tonight, so I have to do that. But anyway, here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. When I see that many sales and a whole bunch of other cards that didn't even make the list, Metal Worker and stuff, weird sales here and there, players are taking it seriously. The warning video I put out has obviously affected things and made people kind of think about it. The prices don't match up to the new product. There's too much of a disparity now in the old stuff that's reserve list and the new stuff coming out, which means old reserve list stuff, if players have desired cards on that list of imagined cards they always wanted to own, they're going to go buy them. They're going to look at those as opposed to buying new product, which they fear is being overproduced, going to be dumped, or they just don't think the price is worth the value of what they're paying for the cards. Guys, be careful though. FOMO has a funny way of making people act. I've done it myself many times, and I bought into crazy stuff that I almost talked myself into. Be careful out there. Spend your money wisely. Build up passive income sources that can fuel your hobby for the long term. Crazier things have gone wrong, but I still think we're going to see a market shift and cards are going to rise in the ones that people really want to get. Just, it's crazy. Too many sales. I couldn't even track close to what I wanted to track. Crazy stuff. Anyway, we'll talk on the live stream, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. As you guys know, this is the end of the Ramble Jamble. I'm going to finish my coffee. I'm going to go out and do things, and I hope you guys get to have an awesome day too, because it was fun hanging out with you. I'll see you guys later.